Father John Jenkins, the Board of Trustees of the University of Notre Dame, members of the faculty, professors, staff, thank you all for the opportunity to be here. I'm very honored. To begin, let me congratulate all of you, the newest graduates, the class of 2018. Graduation at the University of Notre Dame is a tremendous achievement. New challenges wait outside for you all, but this day is for joy and celebration. So, congratulations. I also want to congratulate the parents. It's not easy to raise sons and daughters, to try to teach them by words and example, to save for the cost of education, and to hope that everything will somehow work out. So their success on this day is partly your success. I'm a judge in Brazil, and you probably don't know, I'm also a father. My younger child, a boy, is still in school, but my older daughter is attending law school in Brazil. I'm proud just for her being there, and I can barely imagine how proud I'll be on her graduation day. Therefore, fathers and mothers and other relatives, I do have at least an idea about how deep your pride is at this moment. Congratulations. Allow me to say that when I received the invitation to deliver this commencement speech, it was a great honor, a challenge also, but it was, above all, a great surprise. What does a judge of a Latin American country have to do with a commencement ceremony of a distinguished university in the United States? After some reflections, I concluded that, after all, this is really a small world. I work on very hard cases involving criminal corruption in Brazil, and it's necessary to say that I receive great influence from the work of others, not only in Brazil but abroad. Let me cite, for example, the work of the famous Italian judge, Judge Giovanni Falcone. Falcone was a judge in Sicily at a time when the Italian mafia, the Cosa Nostra, lived with impunity and seemed to be invincible. The bosses were never punished for their crimes. At that time, in the 1980s, the mafia killed policemen, prosecutors, judges, and politicians. They killed even a general of the Italian army, anyone who dared to defy them. But with the work of Judge Falcone and his brave colleagues, the mafia rule was put to an end. In a famous Maxi trial, which took almost 2 years and finished in 1987, 344 mafiosis, including bosses, were finally convicted. The Sicily Mafia still exists, but not anymore with the same power they had before. I remember reading in one of Falcone's books about the admiration he had for United States laws against organized crime and how the La Torre Act, the Italian statute approved in 1982, criminalizing mafia associations, was influenced by the RICO Act. RICO means Racketeer Influence Organization, and it is a United States statute approved in 1970. What makes all this a very small word is that the RICO Act was drafted by a graduate from Notre Dame University. George Robert Blakey graduated here in philosophy and afterward in law, finished his studies in 1960. He later served as a law professor at the University of Notre Dame. Despite his rich academic and public service achievements, his work as one of the main drafters of the RICO Act deserves special emphasis. This statute gave to law enforcement agents the necessary tool to effectively dismantle criminal organizations. It was used, for example, to dismantle the 5 mafia families of New York at the end of the last century. It influenced not only the Lottery Act, but also similar statutes all around the world. In my country, Blake's work influenced Brazilian Act number 12,850, approved in 2013, which defined criminal organizations and also gave to Brazil law enforcement agents the necessary investigative tools to focus on crimes committed by them, including wiretaps and plea agreements. It has a large impact on corruption cases in the Lava Jato operation, about which I will speak later. What does all this tell you? To me, it means that everything is connected in this small world. And you could have a reasonable expectation that what you do here in the United States, or more specifically at the University of Notre Dame, could have a positive impact abroad, all around the globe. This makes your responsibilities even bigger. Now allow me to say something about Brazil and my work there, because that's in part the reason for me being here. I think it's possible to extract some general lessons or suggestions for you from what's happening in Brazil. Brazil is the biggest country in Latin America, and it's the 8th largest economy of the world. It has a lot of points in common with the United States. After all, we are Americans in the new world with all that represents. We got our independence in 1822. You got yours in 1776. Both countries suffered with slavery in the 19th century. Both countries received millions of immigrants from all over the world. In Brazil, we have not only Portuguese, but Italians, Japanese, Germans, Lebanese, and Spanish. Our democracy is not as old as United States democracy. To be honest, we have suffered since our independence several dictatorships. The last one ended in 1985. Since then, Brazilian citizens have recovered all their democratic rights and freedom. Since then, it's possible to say that we, like you here, have the same dreams of liberty and equality. However, after recovering our democracy, we have still made several mistakes. It seems that we in Brazil, as a people, failed to prevent the misuse and abuse of public power for private gain. So corruption grew, and in time it became widespread, endemic, or even systemic. Anyway, since 2014, a giant investigation under my jurisdiction was started. It's about billions of dollars of bribes paid in public contracts to public officials and high-level politicians. The case is named Lava Jato Operation. In English, they call it car wash operation. It's not possible to describe here everything about the case or to explain exactly why it has such a strange name. But let me say that's different from our past of impunity for grand corruption. This time, several powerful criminals are being tried by due process and being held accountable. Nowadays, as a result of this investigation, more than 100 157 persons were convicted for bribery and money laundering. Among them, there are powerful businessmen and politicians like executives and CEOs of Brazilian biggest construction companies, executives of Petrobras, which is a Brazilian state-owned company, and high-level politicians like congressmen, a former governor, a former secretary of finance of the federal government, a former speaker of the House, and even a former president. It's interesting to note that it was also discovered that some bribes were also paid by Brazilian companies for public officials and politicians abroad. For example, in other Latin American countries. Some of these countries received the evidence and they are building their own cases. Because of that, some people say there is a kind of anti-corruption wave all over Latin America. And to be honest, this may be happening in many parts of the world. We all recently heard news about corruption charges and convictions against the former president of South Africa and the former president of South Korea. In Brazil, I'm just one of many people working on this investigation. Let's make clear, it's the product of an institutional action by judges, prosecutors, and police officers. This work has not been easy. Old acts of systemic corruption and impunity are hard to overcome. There are threats, menaces, risks, and attempts at defamation. Some criminals and their allies don't want to change the status quo of bribery and impunity, and there are many, and they are powerful. Despite that, the investigation, the prosecution, and the trials are in progress, and Brazilian people support them. Since 2015, millions of Brazilian citizens went to the street to protest against corruption and in support of the car wash probe. A poll in April this year showed that 84% of Brazilians want the probe to continue. Of course, the systemic corruption uncovered in Brazil is shameful. But there is another way to look at this picture. There is no shame in the enforcement of the law. As once said by United States former President Theodore Roosevelt, now I'm quoting, "The exposure and punishment of public corruption is an honor to a nation, not a disgrace." All these efforts are worthy. All Brazilians have an infinite hope that at the end we'll have a stronger economy and a democracy with more integrity and with a better overall quality. In summary, we don't want to be known as a kind of bribe nation, but as a strong and modern democracy with rule of law. What the case taught me, not as a judge, but as a man, is that you should never give up on a fight for a good cause. Not so long ago, corruption and impunity seemed invincible. For some, it was a kind of natural fate, a tropical disease. But in truth, it's just a product of institutional weakness. No country is destined to live with it. You can deal with the problem and reduce impunity and corruption. You just need the political will to do so. I don't know what will happen with Brazil's future. We could suffer setbacks, but I do believe we have given ourselves at least a chance to have a better country. Anyway, I believe that what really matters is what you stand for, and fighting for integrity in public life is a worth cause. Coming to the last part of my speech, let me say again that you are in a day of joy and celebration. You are graduating for University of Notre Dame, this distinguished institution. You will start a new stage of your lives. You will be lawyers, judges, physicians, engineers, scientists, astronauts, professors, whatever your wishes and your talents are capable of. I really hope that you all be happy in your careers and also in your private lives. But although it's true that every person exists as an end in himself, as Kant, the Königsberg philosopher, has said, it's also true that no man is born for himself, as Walling, one of the levelers of the Old England, taught. So, never forget to act with integrity and with virtue in your private and public life. Never stop fighting for these values within your community. Never give up on demanding virtue and integrity from your government. Never forget the cornerstone of democratic nations, which is the rule of law. It means that everyone is entitled to equal protection of the law. In this meaning, it works to protect the most vulnerable. But it also means that no one is above the law. Thomas Fuller, also from England, once said, "Be you never so high, the law is above you." That's what makes democracies a government by law. This is a lesson not only for Brazil, but even to mature democracies. Democracy starts to fade when citizens turn their backs on public matters, and when citizens stop caring if their government works for the common good, or only for special interests. There is still much to be done. I hope that you all are successful. Thank you all for your attention. Good luck and Godspeed, or as we say in Brazil, boa sorte e vão com Deus.